And what is up, everybody? Uh, just finished getting the 2011 Thundercats, and it got me thinking, because I keep running into people who, granted, they're not necessarily geeks. They don't continue to watch cartoons, but they remember the cartoons from the 80s and talk about how, oh yeah, they should bring that back. They should bring that back. But they have brought most of them back, Um, and yet these people are completely oblivious to it. And it's sad because majority of them missed out on some pretty good television. Whether you're an adult or not, there's no reason why you still can't enjoy this. And uh, we're gonna start off in well, chronological order. Starting with more or less the first revamp, I'd have to say, was Transformers Beast Wars. Basically, it was a continuation of the original G1 Transformers, except now it's Maximals and Predacons, which ended with Beast Machines, of course, and then the first uh, anime series shown to the United States in a very long time was at first Robots in Disguise, which was horrible. Then came Transformers Armada, which wasn't much better. Um, Robots in Disguise. Optimus Prime was a fire truck. He was a fire engine, and then everybody, well, like all the Autobots, regardless of who, they had to be related. They were all related. They were all brothers. Um, uh, they had this cool combination for both Optimus Prime and Ultra Magnus, but they were both brothers. It made absolutely no sense. The original story for it, because keep in mind, whatever Transformers was derived from the original Japanese toy Microman, uh, Mic- Microman, which was a Takara toy, which is Hasbro's sister company. Whatever the original story for Convoy, which is the name of Optimus Prime in Japan, and I have no idea what Ultra Magnus is named, because keep in mind, even if you have the classic Ultra Magnus toy, it's just a white Optimus Prime. And later on, they showed this a resin cast statue. I'm not sure how big it was, but it was a resin statue of Ultra Magnus, and all it was a white Optimus Prime. And whether the two of them were actually supposed to be brothers, I have no idea. But to bring it in this show, and the show, it's the Autobots versus the Predacons, so they have these giant, robotic beasts they have to go up against, and then bring in Decepticons on top of that. It was just too much. The show lasted only a season, because now all of a sudden, whenever they pull the trigger, photon blaster. Like any traditional anime, they have to say the move that they're about to do before they do it. And it was more like Digimon, and it wasn't really Transformers. The Transformers Armada was a lot better, but still, whatever. When you got to, they introduced mini-cons. And, it was a cool concept that these mini-cons also have the ability to transform into smaller versions of these different machines, but then they have the ability to unlock new abilities within whichever Cybertronian, whether it be Autobot or Decepticon. Then came Transformers Energon, the Power Links, which is basically one guy turns into the other guy's much bigger pair of legs. Dumb. Transformers Cybertron with the Cyberplanet keys, very cool. That was probably one of the better ones. Then you go into Transformers Animated, which I did not get into at all. I couldn't. It like I just absolutely could not get into that show. And no, I've heard a lot of good things about it, but and I even bought the Rodimus Prime, the Rodimus for it, and I'm not, I'm still not getting into that show. Transformers Prime. Everybody, a lot of people lately have been watching Transformers Prime thanks to the Hub Network, and it's pretty cool seeing Transformers back. And thanks to the movie, they brought back the original voice of Optimus and Megatron, and it's great listening to this. Now they're doing a new Robots in Disguise, not the one from 2002, thank God. But yeah, it's 2001, but this is definitely gonna prove interesting. And from there, on top of all of that, GI Joe. After stopping in the early '90s, thanks to Deke, Deke just making the show entirely too campy. Hasbro did away with the characters. They tried bringing them, they brought them back with in 2001. They had the GI Joe versus Cobra toy line. Then they tried Spy Troops, and then they even made a 3D animated Spy Troops movie, which was only about maybe 40 minutes long. Then the following year came out with the I think maybe this was a feature length, maybe an hour 10, hour 20 minutes full length feature animated movie, Valor versus Venom. Cute, still very campy, but at least attempted at revamping it, and better than the first GI Joe movie, at least. And finally, with the toys for Sigma 6, with Sigma 6 the show, it being an anime, sucked. I got nothing against anime. I love anime, but Sigma 6 sucked. And for a lot of people, especially that when I went to get my degree in digital media, majority of people that knew anything about GI Joe, the only thing they knew was Sigma 6. So they weren't fans of the franchise at all, because the show sucked. The toys were phenomenal, but the show was garbage. And what I did like was they came up with Adult Swim decided that they were going to do this basically this mini series, and they put out these little webisodes called GI Joe Resolute, and every week on YouTube they put a new episode out. It would be 10 episodes altogether. The first 9 came out one after the other after 9 weeks. On the 10th week, they were going to broadcast all 9 episodes, the entire thing in its entirety, as well as the last episode on Adult Swim, on Cartoon Network. GI Joe Resolute being one giant movie. It was done by the same people that did Avatar: The Last Airbender. It was much more realistic due to the fact that they didn't use lasers. They used real bullets. The movie starts off, there's a member of Cobra and a member of GI Joe dead. D-E-D, dead. Okay. And it was a much more interesting take on it due to the fact that the original Larry Hama comics had bullets, and Joes and Cobras died all the time. But in the cartoon, they didn't portray that. In Sigma 6, they didn't do that. And I think that was Hasbro's actual apology letter, because shortly after that, there's like, by the way, we're apologizing ahead of time for the trash that's about to come out. Because lo and behold, after that same summer was G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra. And yeah. So after that, but because a lot of kids liked it and a lot of people, there were a lot of people. I understand I'm hating on it, but you got to realize that wasn't GI Joe. That was not GI Joe. It's like they weren't even trying. And for that movie, for the success that it had, um, thanks to the Hub Network, and of course because now they brought in, and thanks to especially the success of the Transformers movies. Now they're going to bring out uh, Transformers Prime. So they decided to also bring back G.I. Joe with the cartoon G.I. Joe Renegades. G.I. Joe Renegades is Duke, Tunnel Rat, Scarlet, Roadblock this time instead of Heavy Duty. Because in the original Larry Hama comics, Duke wasn't one of the original Joes. He was not one of the original 8 Joes. And then when he was introduced to the team, he showed up the same time as Roadblock. So to have and Roadblock showed up way before Heavy Duty ever did, and this was an interesting take as well. It looked like it was done by the same people that did the Men in, I want to say the 1990s Men in Black cartoon, which was a great show as well, and which also plays on the Hub Network. I don't know if they're still broadcasting it, but so like I said, Duke, Scarlet, Roadblock, Tunnel Rat, and it was a black Ripcord. Ripcord being black thanks to Marlon Wayans' poor portrayal of the character. Difference being, you actually like this guy, except he dies in the first episode. I could not understand it. Like I said, a completely different take. Snake Eyes is in it because Snake Eyes is everybody's favorite G.I. Joe by default. And basically they were framed for something they didn't commit. Cobra is basically this. It's not a terrorist organization. It's a corporation. Basically think Walmart on steroids, because not only do they have like their own like BJ wholesale clubs and Costco's and Sam clubs and stuff like that, but they have their own supermarkets. They have their own pharmaceutical companies, their own electronics, stuff like that. And basically Cobra has their hands in absolutely everything. And to basically GI for this military team to accidentally find out what it was that what Cobra's plan is to secretly try to take over the world. All of a sudden, now they're framed for bombing one of their facilities, and there are and now these 5 characters, soon 6 characters, are on the run from the law. And the show only lasted 1 season, but it was a very great show. And going into each, they really went through the trouble of making sure that they developed each character, that no ifs, ands, or buts were left out of any questions about any of the characters, and introducing other Joes along the way, introducing Barbecue, Steeler, Snow Job, even Shipwreck. That was great. Shipwreck's always been one of my favorites. Introducing Heavy Duty, of course, a lot later. Another show that from the 80s that most of the people had no idea happened. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. In 2002, Mattel decided to bring that toy line, which was probably like the best action figures they ever made. These figures were gorgeous. Absolutely loved these toys. I wish Mattel made most of their action figures to look like this. They're just gorgeous. So, what winds up happening is 2002, Cartoon Network is playing it. So Warner Brothers more or less has the rights for this. Okay, fine. This is done in a somewhat anime style, which is which is real cool. Much more darker tone to it. And instead of Prince Adam and He-Man looking exactly the same, Prince Adam is only 16 years old, and when he transforms into He-Man, uh, they changed his sword. Cringer doesn't talk, thank God. Battle Cat doesn't talk, thank God. Uh, and it made for a much more interesting story. The stuff that was going on. The reason why this show got canceled was because Cartoon Network and Mattel, they're basically shooting themselves in the foot. Cartoon Network did not do a good enough job, including Mattel, because this is their intellectual property. Did not do a good enough job of marketing the show. Not because I'm constantly running into people that had no idea that show even existed. On top of that, when they released the toy line, there were so many stupid He-Man variants, nobody cared. Oh my goodness, like so many different He-Man and Skeletor variants, when there were so many other characters, not to mention new characters that they created for the show that they could have made the figures for. Not to mention old characters from the original toys as well as the cartoons that they brought into the show that they weren't making figures for because of the stupid He-Man and Skeletor variants. I don't know what to tell you about that. The way the show ended, though, because they introduced Hordak, they introduced the Snake Men. They didn't get into Etheria and She-Ra. Thank God. I hated She-Ra. She-Ra sucked. She-Ra was one of the real. That was the last show. That was basically the last show Filmation did. Why? Because that was the show that basically put the nail in Filmation's coffin. Because She-Ra sucked, including the toy line for it was garbage. Granted, the revamp for the Masters of the Universe Classic toys for them do much more justice for them. You had in the end of this show, Zodak had a brother who was killed by King Hiss and ultimately won his revenge. What winds up happening is, first off, you find out the true origin of He-Man by being introduced to King Grayskull. And apparently, I guess this is something that Mattel wanted for the original storyline, and I mentioned it before. This is the basically a He-Man this whole time was a metaphor of being a Christian. And what winds up happening with this is Zodak winds up killing in a very, very, very cool way, winds up killing King Hiss. And it was left a bit of an open ending. Granted, there was no way for Hordak to come out of the dimension that he was trapped in. And when Snake Mountain transformed into the serpent god Serpos with Skeletor and all his evil warriors there, basically everything was just crushed and entombed, and you never saw what happened to Skeletor after that. So you could assume that he died in all that. That was a great show, and it was very, very sad to see it close off like that, and especially the toys, and especially the new Snake Armor He-Man. That was the first ever He-Man action figure where He-Man had articulating elbows. They should have done a better job with his sword, though. That sword looks stupid. But to try to get that toy is like, trying to get any of those toys, man, is super expensive on eBay. It's sad. Then, Ninja Turtles. 2002, here comes He-Man, and I was told it was the same company that did He-Man. 2003 did the revamp for Ninja Turtles. I knew that was coming out. When I got out of boot camp, I went out of my way and went to Toys R Us Times Square, bought all 4 turtles. The toys were out, bought all 4 of them. No ifs, ands, or buts. That was the second rendition of the turtles that I owned, all 4 of them, and you have to get all 4 at once. There's not, oh, I got them this time, get this, they sold out, and it's like, no, grab them all, and grab them all, walk out of the store before you get a chance to change your mind. The 2003 Ninja Turtles almost followed verbatim the original Eastman and Laird comics. They kept that very dark grit that the Eastman and Laird comics had, but at the same time, the same lightheartedness of the original 1987 cartoon, which threw a lot of people for a loop due to the fact that the comics were very violent. In fact, the whole purpose of Splinter raising the turtles was for the sole purpose. I'm being redundant. The sole purpose to get revenge on Shredder. That was the only reason why he raised those boys, those 4 turtles, and trained them the way he did. And you got to read the original. You got to read the original art. You can find them. Eastman and Laird's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles volumes 1 through like 4. These ginormous hardcover books. And since it was indie press, they're all black and white. And you see the original artwork, and this was their tribute to their to Jack Kirby and Frank Miller, all their favorite comic artists and storytellers. Because as a matter of fact, it was what inspired them to do this was Frank Miller's Ronin, and for this 2003 cartoon, following it almost verbatim, introducing characters from the book the way it was supposed to be. Because in the 1987 cartoon, Leatherhead's a bad guy. In the 2003, and including the current series that's out now, Leatherhead's a good guy, like he's supposed to be. Finding out that Krang is actually supposed to be a good guy, making Baxter Stockman black, like he was supposed to be, and April being his lab assistant, not a news reporter. So she was very tech savvy. Introducing Casey Jones, the fight between Casey Jones and Raphael. Almost like in the original Eastman and Laird comic. In the original comic, what happened was it was a 1-issue miniseries, Raphael, and the two of them meet each other for the first time and damn near kill each other. So, bringing that to the cartoon, bringing the Purple Dragon Gang to the cartoon, just like the comic, and just so many different things. Like when I went back to when I looked at the comic, I was like, oh my god, this is just like the show. Especially this particular episode. Also, right out of the Eastman and Laird comic, it was Eastman and Laird's tribute to Jack Kirby, where Donatello meets April's downstairs tenant. His name's Kirby, but you could see like the way his comic art style, you knew it was Jack Kirby, and they even made him look like Jack Kirby. I forget the name of the episode, but it was straight out of the books, and to see it animated was just truly an honor to see. And that show lasted 5 seasons. Then they expanded it to Fast Forward, then to which only lasted 1 season, and then to Back to the Sewers, which is basically they went through. They had traveled to the future. Then they went back to like a year from where they left off. And what winds up happening after that show was over, you think, okay, fine, it was a nice run. Everything they could have done, they did do. Didn't jump the shark. They just kept everything new and exciting. Okay, great. Great into a great show. Sorry to see you leave. You think it's over? No. They give you the feature-length animated film Turtles Forever, introducing the 1987 Turtles meeting the 2003 Ninja Turtles, having both different art and animation styles existing in the same frame. It was like I didn't even think anything like that was possible, and it was hilarious because you see the different tones of both shows, and then at the same time both of them trying to coexist, which seemed almost impossible. And then you see an appearance of the original Eastman and Laird Turtles as well. It was great, great end. And then that was in 2009, and in 2011 here's a brand new. No, as a matter of fact, 2012. Here's a brand new Ninja Turtles. There's people that still watch that one, and they haven't even forgotten it. And you're bringing them a new show, and the new show is just as good as the 2003 show. They keep the dark tone, but it's all original story. But they try to stay, they give little hints of the Eastman and Laird comics, but at the same time, they're also staying true to the 1987 cartoon. That being said, last one, Thundercats. They revamped it in 2011, and just like with Masters of the Universe, they didn't do a good job of marketing it. Cartoon Network. The show was done by I don't know if every episode was done by, but definitely the first episode was done by the same animators as Naruto, because the original show was done in Japan, and then brought everything was animated in Japan and then brought to the United States because it was cheaper to do it overseas. But in this show, rather than Thundera being the planet they escaped from disaster, Thundera is a kingdom, a single kingdom among many kingdoms on the planet Third Earth. Lion-O is not a 12-year-old trapped in a man's body because his cryo chamber broke. Therefore, he grew in size but did not grow up, which was the famous quote by Tigra. It so happens that he's actually a teenager, probably around 17, 18 years old, and of course he is the heir to the throne of Thundera. His father, King Claudius, voiced by the original voice of Lion-O. That's right, nice little nod, and did an absolutely phenomenal job for it too. And you can hear it, and it's just you're so pumped. And even though it's Will Friedle as the voice of the new Lion-O, having him say thunder, thunder, it still gets you going, just like just like the original. The man did his job, and basically this whole thing is Tigra. This is Lion-O's adopted older brother. Jaga is basically like the high priest / head bodyguard of the royal family. His unit called clerics, and Chitara is one of the clerics. Panthro being one of the generals. Snarf is just a pet, doesn't talk. Thank God for that. Then Wily Kit and Wily Cat are just two orphan kids, and ultimately, within a matter of hours after long planning on that of the bad guys, Thundera is basically the entire kingdom is destroyed in a single day, and it's sad to see, basically, oh, how the mighty have fallen in this situation. So now it's Lionel's job to basically free his people because they've all been captured and sold into slavery, and basically bring back Thundera, ultimately destroying Mumra. Mumra, you find out and there's backstories for each character, and each one, especially when you find out Tiger's backstory as to why he was adopted and where it was that he came from, just breaks your heart, man. Um, on top of that, they introduced Pumira. They also, because keep in mind, the people who created Thundercats also created Silverhawks and Tiger Sharks, and in one of the backstories, you get to see nods of Tiger Sharks and Silverhawks. They show Monstar, who was the main bad guy, and basically just the way everything just came together as they had the little nods to the fans, including the trials of Lion-O, which made a lot more sense this time around as opposed to how it was originally done. But the show was great, and it ended after one season, and no closing, no closure whatsoever. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, but later on in the show, you are introduced to Pumira. In the first episode, they show basically Linkso makes a cameo. Now Linkso's blind, but his hearing is impeccable, and you find out that he's a general. He says, he's like, I can smell. And he's like, I don't need to see. I can smell them from here. It's lizards, and that's basically all he said. That's the last you see or hear from him, and you never hear about Bengali either. The way the show ended, like I said, uh, just left too many questions unanswered. And now, if Cartoon Network was to just make a movie just for the sole purpose of closing this show off, man. I understand you're not gonna do it. The toy line, I guess, didn't do as well. The toy line was done by Bandai. Bandai did. It was two different sets of figures that they had. There was some that was only like a 3 3/4 inch, and some that stood 6 inches. The 6 inch lines, these guys were fully articulated, very well detailed. But for collectors' purposes, but at the same time could be played with, almost like GI Joe Legends. Not necessarily. I mean, not GI Joe Legends. Marvel Legends. Uh, Not like Bandai's SD figure arts or anything like that. Uh, but still good. And then the 3 3/4 inch toys, which were the only toys that actually fit in the vehicles. Uh, they weren't bad, and again, didn't do a good job marketing them, and shot themselves in the foot. You basically go through the trouble of revamping a franchise and do almost nothing with it. It was sad. It was sad to see the show leave again. As good as it was, I saw people who were not that much into cartoons just so happy to see Thundercats again and see this much better version of it, and for it to ultimately just go down the drain. It was sad. If Cartoon Network could just get this company just a bit, just a 90-minute movie and just close everything off. Just basically put, find whatever was left to find, discover whoever was left to discover, and just ultimately the final battle uh, between the Thundercats and Mumra, and of course, just saving the kingdom in general. And it wouldn't be uh, forced or anything like that. It would just be nice to see um, uh, some closure for this. And I'm more or less done. For those of you that didn't know about these shows, get online, look it up. I'm done talking. You guys have a good night.